I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Well, we are coming to the end of day 8 and some new information has just come out. More and more, Jay Slater's story is starting to resemble that of Nashville, Tennessee's Riley Strain. Obviously, Riley was from the University of Missouri in town with some friends in a similar way to Jay Slater. So many things are the same between the two cases, not just intoxication, extreme intoxication, taking a wrong turn at night, and theoretically, him being driven where he was going was part of that wrong turn, getting lost, and all of this while basically stumbling around on unfamiliar terrain in a compromised state. How do we know he was more than a little intoxicated, more than average? Well, because witnesses saw and recorded him. And I think how he appears the day before this happens and the night before this happens and kind of on the night that this happens is, I think, more opposite than what happens 3 years before that. And he stood out even in the setting of a rave and a dance floor. A witness said, "I saw a lad staggering around in front of me. You could see him get up off the ground. Everyone turned there to look. They looked a bit concerned." Now, if you think about it, how often do you go into a disco or a rave and someone's actually on the ground? It does happen, but it doesn't really happen that often. People who end up on the ground tend to be a lot more tipsy and drunk than everybody else. And so he went on to say, "I had no idea it was Jay at first. He was proper worse for wear. He was with a couple of lads and a girl." And this is where we again need to appreciate just how young and inexperienced Jay was, including in the arena of clubbing and drinking, but more importantly, managing himself during a wild night out. Doesn't it appear as though he wasn't managing himself? He was letting himself become worn out. Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Welcome to the many of you who have subscribed. Thank you for being here. If you're enjoying this analysis, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. One way of looking at it is if he couldn't manage himself the next day, and it does seem like he couldn't. He made some poor decisions. He didn't take water with him. He went in the wrong direction. He didn't charge his phone, all of those things. This may be a psychological mirror to what was going on the night before. Did he have enough money with him? Did he drink enough during that night or drink enough water? Did he drink too much of something else? Did he take too much of something else? Did he dance too much? It's also clear his behavior on Sunday night had a huge bearing not only on his state of mind the next morning, but also his deteriorated physical condition. So I think if you're thinking, surely he didn't just walk out there and then the next thing he died. And the answer is, that's right. That period of deterioration had started many hours earlier. The other thing that I think is important to be clear about is that all of this happens within a scenario of being lost. How do we know he was lost? Because he said so. After setting off, he called his friend Lucy Law, who was at the music festival, and he said, "I'm lost. I'm thirsty. I've got 1% charge on my phone. I've cut my leg on a cactus." And the cut my leg on the cactus is also indicative that he's wherever he is, he's stumbling around outside now. And so his cell battery being on 1% is a kind of allegory to the teenager's body battery, isn't it? Which is likely seriously run down as well. Youngsters are tough. They can bounce back. They can be up all night in a way that people in their 20s, not 20s, let's say 30s and 40s and beyond certainly can no longer do. They don't have that kind of stamina or endurance, but youngsters also have their limits when it comes to chronic lack of sleep. And as we saw in the previous video, something as simple as not drinking enough water while jumping around all night can actually have serious consequences. A rave, have you been to a rave? Do you remember the last time you were at one? It's a kind of strenuous workout. Often, I remember being at a rave and then the next day your legs hurt. Feels like you've run a hard 10K, right? Now, the new footage that has just been released shows the teenager staggering on the dance floor. Unlike many other raves, you might say there's nothing strange about that. Everyone there was dancing. Well, what stood out was Jay had fallen on the floor at a certain point. Now, what I don't get with the whole drug narrative, if he's this drug kingpin, this drug lord, how is he doing his thing, wheeling and dealing when he's kind of the most compromised, apparently one of the most compromised revelers there? Is he there to do business and to make sort of serious arrangements for some kind of criminal underworld thing, or is he just there trying to have fun and kind of falling around? And I think this is also allegory for what likely happened outside in the mountains the next morning. It also draws, this falling around aspect, it also draws another chilling parallel to 22-year-old Riley Strain. If you want to know what I'm talking about in terms of that, just look at the Riley Strain playlist. He was staggering around as well. And what inevitably happens to someone who's staggering around on uneven, unfamiliar terrain, they fall. A fall happens, and perhaps an incapacitating one. Also, since he left the club at around 3 a.m., some people say between 3 and 6, but at the earliest he left at 3 a.m., well, he was already smoking a cigarette by 7:30 a.m. That's really a maximum of about 4 hours sleep, if that. And it really does seem like he pulled an all-nighter. Often, after a night like that, you can't go to sleep, which is probably why the 2-hour wait for the bus seemed like a bridge too far for him. If he just waited for the bus, then there would have been no harm, no foul. Also, in case you've not noticed, did you know that Jay headed north from Marca to his hotel instead of south? So that also just shows just how disoriented and compromised he was. Just like Riley Strain, he was possibly looking at his phone but struggling to figure it out. And I did mention previously that even sober, I've struggled as a pedestrian to figure out what's going on with Google Maps. It's just a little bit different to navigate than when you're driving. And so if Jay had simply taken a photo of where he was when he made his final call, he could have been found long ago. That could have made the difference. Sometimes lives can be saved or lost on these seemingly small, insignificant margins. And I think a lot of us, when we were young, we took risks, we made silly mistakes. God knows I did. And we were sometimes fortunate, often, frequently fortunate to have scraped through, to have survived through luck or whatever it is. And then sometimes people don't. Having said that, this isn't one little mistake. It's actually a long series of compounding mistakes, seemingly leading to one inexorable outcome. And again, our thoughts are with his family, with his friends, and with those who certainly care about him. One does wonder where he is right now, where he's going to be found, and how long that's still going to take. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.